Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
The signal did not arrive with drama. There were no alarms, no cinematic bursts of static, no sudden panic in mission control. It slipped quietly into the endless stream of cosmic noise, just another anomaly flagged by an automated system orbiting beyond Pluto. At first, it was dismissed. Then it repeated. Not randomly. Not naturally. Precisely. Dr. Elias Vance first saw it as a line of numbers scrolling across a secondary monitor in the Deep Signal Analysis Lab. He almost ignored it. Almost. But something about the structure, too clean, too intentional, caught his attention. "Run that again," he muttered. The AI complied. The sequence reappeared. Prime numbers. Then geometric ratios. Then something stranger, patterns nested inside patterns, like language trying to emerge from mathematics. Elias leaned forward slowly. This isn't noise. Within hours, the lab was sealed. Within days, the world knew. The global response was chaotic in a way only humanity could manage. Equal parts awe, fear, and competition. Governments scrambled to control information. Scientists argued across continents. Theories multiplied faster than they could be tested. But the signal remained steady, unchanging, patient. Elias became central to the effort almost by accident. He wasn't the most famous linguist, nor the most decorated scientist. But he had something others didn't, an unusual ability to detect meaning where none seemed obvious. He didn't just study language. He felt it. "They're not transmitting information," Elias said during a closed briefing. "They're building a bridge." A general frowned. A bridge to what? Elias looked at the projection, those impossible patterns looping endlessly. To us. Decoding took months. The breakthrough didn't come from supercomputers or quantum simulations. It came late at night, when Elias stopped trying to translate the signal and started listening to it. He began mapping the patterns not as data, but as relationships. Rhythm, repetition, variation, language. "They're teaching us how to understand them," he whispered, eyes wide with realization. The signal shifted in response. That was the moment everything changed. The coordinates came last. A set of spatial markers embedded deep within the structure of the transmission, hidden until the rest of the language was understood. When plotted, they pointed to a star system far beyond anything humanity had ever reached. Thyra 9, an exoplanet orbiting a dim blue star, previously cataloged but never explored. It showed faint atmospheric signatures, oxygen traces, unusual electromagnetic fluctuations, but nothing that had warranted serious attention. Until now. "They want us to come," Elias said. The room fell silent. The decision fractured the world. Some called it a trap. Others called it destiny. Religious leaders spoke of angels or demons. Military strategists demanded caution. Civilian populations oscillated between excitement and dread. But the signal never changed. It did not threaten. It did not plead. It simply waited. In the end, curiosity won. It always did. The mission was assembled with unprecedented speed. The vessel, Ardent Reach, was humanity's most advanced deep spacecraft, retrofitted for a journey no one had ever planned for. Its crew was a carefully selected mix of scientists, engineers, and security personnel. And one linguist. Elias didn't feel like the right person for the job. He wasn't a pilot, not a soldier, not even particularly brave. But when the invitation came, he didn't hesitate. He couldn't. Somewhere, across impossible distance, something had spoken, and he understood it. That made him responsible. The journey took longer than anyone liked. Cryosleep filled the years, punctuated by brief awakenings to monitor systems and adjust course. Time lost meaning. Earth became a memory wrapped in data logs and archived messages. Elias spent his waking hours studying the signal, even though it had stopped the moment they departed. "They're waiting," he said once, half to himself. "For what?" asked Commander Ria Solis. "For us to arrive." Thyra 9 appeared slowly. At first, it was just another star, indistinguishable from thousands of others. Then it grew, subtly, steadily, until the planet came into view. It was Wrong. Not hostile. Not dead. Just unfamiliar in a way that unsettled the human mind. The oceans shimmered with faint luminescence. Storm systems moved in patterns too symmetrical to be random. The atmosphere refracted light in soft, shifting hues, violet, teal, silver. "It's beautiful," someone whispered. "It's watching us," someone else replied. Scans revealed no cities, no satellites, no visible signs of civilization. And yet, energy readings spiked across the surface in precise, repeating intervals. Structures appeared and vanished depending on the angle of observation, as if reality itself bent slightly around them. "They're there," Elias said quietly. "Just not the way we expect." The landing site was provided, not through a new signal, but through a final layer of the original transmission. Coordinates within coordinates, waiting to be unlocked only upon arrival. A flat expanse near the edge of a vast, glowing plain. Too perfect, too deliberate. Commander Solis made the call. "We go down." Standard first contact protocol. No sudden movements, no assumptions. She looked at Elias. "You're with me." The shuttle descent was silent. No one spoke as Thyra 9's surface rushed up to meet them. The sky above was a pale, endless blue, streaked with faint bands of light that moved too slowly to be clouds. Elias felt it before he understood it. A presence, not external, not exactly, more like the sensation of being noticed. They landed without incident. The ramp lowered with a soft mechanical hiss. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, movement. At the far edge of the plane, something shifted. A figure. Tall. Too tall. Elias's breath caught. It approached slowly, deliberately, each step measured, not threatening, but undeniably powerful. As it drew closer, details emerged. Humanoid, graceful, alien. She stood at least 8 feet tall, her form elongated yet perfectly balanced. Her skin reflected light, like polished obsidian, threaded with faint lines of soft luminescence that pulsed gently beneath the surface. Her eyes, Elias couldn't look away. They weren't just bright. They were aware in a way that felt deeper than sight. Commander Solis raised a hand, signaling caution. No one moved. The figure stopped a short distance away. Silence stretched. Then Elias felt it. Not a sound, not a voice. A thought, clear, direct, unmistakable. "You came." His heart pounded. He stepped forward before anyone could stop him. We receive your message," he said, his voice unsteady but firm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the presence shifted. Closer, sharper, focused entirely on him. And again, inside his mind. "You understood." Elias swallowed. "Yes." A pause. Then, "Good." The air seemed to change around them, as if something vast had just taken its first breath. The figure tilted her head slightly, studying him. "I am Caliph." Elias felt the name more than he heard it. He hesitated only briefly. "I'm Elias." Another pause, longer this time, deeper, as if something ancient was recognizing something new. Then, "Elias." For reasons he couldn't explain, the way she formed his name felt like the beginning of something that would change everything. And somewhere, far beyond the limits of human understanding, something had already begun. The first hour after contact passed without anyone realizing time was moving at all. No one dared interrupt. Commander Solis maintained protocol. The security team stayed alert. Instruments recorded everything. But the center of gravity had shifted. The mission was no longer about procedure. It was about Elias and Caliph. Because she was not speaking to the group. She was speaking to him. At first, the communication was uneven. Caliph's thoughts came through as clear impressions, meanings without structure, concepts without grammar. Elias struggled to translate them into words the others could understand. "It's not exactly language," he explained, his voice low, eyes still fixed on her. "It's layered, like she's sending the idea and the feeling at the same time." "You separate them," Caliph responded instantly. Elias flinched slightly. "Yes," he said, "we do." A faint pulse of light moved beneath her skin, subtle, rhythmic. "I am adjusting." They established a system. Elias would receive her thoughts, interpret them aloud, and respond verbally. Caliph, in turn, began shaping her transmissions, slowing them, simplifying them, compressing meaning into something closer to human speech. Within hours, she spoke her first word out loud. Elias. The sound was low and resonant, as if her voice carried harmonics beyond human hearing. Elias blinked, surprised. That's new. I learn, she said carefully. Her lips, still unfamiliar in their structure, formed the words with deliberate precision. Each syllable felt like an experiment. Commander Solis exchanged a glance with the others. She's adapting fast, she whispered. Not just fast, Elias murmured. She's meeting us halfway. The Thyran environment itself seemed to respond to Kalita's presence. As they moved across the glowing plain, the ground subtly shifted, textures smoothing beneath their feet, faint light patterns forming and dissolving in response to her movements. What is this place? Solis asked. Kalith turned her gaze toward the horizon. Interface, she said. Elias translated automatically. It's not just terrain. It's part of their system, like a living surface. A planet that listens, one of the engineers muttered. Kalith tilted her head. Yes. The first true misunderstanding came quickly. It always did. You sent the signal to invite us, Elias said. Why? Kalith paused. Not a hesitation. Something deeper. A recalibration. To connect. Elias nodded. To exchange knowledge? She studied him. No. A ripple of unease passed through the team. Elias frowned slightly. Then what kind of connection? Kalith stepped closer. Too close, by human standards. The security team tensed immediately, but Elias didn't move. Her presence pressed against his mind, not forceful, but impossible to ignore. You are incomplete, she projected. The words hit harder than he expected. Before he could respond, she continued. We are also incomplete. Elias blinked. That's not what we expected. Kalita's voice, both spoken and unspoken, softened. We have ended conflict. We have ended scarcity. We have ended the need to change. Elias slowly began to understand. And that's a problem. A faint glow pulsed across her form. Yes. The Thyrans, as Kalith explained, had evolved beyond traditional existence. They no longer reproduced biologically. They no longer competed. They no longer struggled. They had perfected themselves. And in doing so, they had stopped growing. We preserve, Kalith said. We maintain. We do not become. Elias felt a strange weight settle in his chest. Humans are the opposite, he said. We never stop becoming, even when it hurts. Kalita's gaze sharpened. Yes. That single word carried something new. Interest. Days passed, or what passed for days under Thyra 9's strange sky. The crew established a temporary research outpost, though temporary quickly lost meaning. The mission had shifted from exploration to immersion, and at the center of it all, Elias and Kalith. She learned quickly, too quickly, within what felt like a few short cycles. Kalith was speaking in full sentences, not perfectly, but with growing fluency. Her voice remained layered, each word carrying subtle undertones that hinted at meanings humans could only partially grasp. You think in lines, she said one evening as they stood overlooking the luminous plains. Elias smiled faintly. Linear time, linear language, linear logic. It's how we make sense of things. Kayla stepped beside him, her towering form casting a long, shifting shadow. We think in convergence, she said. Meaning, she reached out not physically, but mentally. Elias felt it instantly. A cascade of impressions flooded his mind, not overwhelming, but vast. Memories that weren't his. Perspectives that overlapped and intertwined. No beginning, no end, just a network of understanding. He staggered slightly. Okay, he exhaled. That's a lot. Kalith withdrew immediately. Too much. Not too much, he said, steadying himself. Just different. She studied him carefully. You do not resist. Elias let out a quiet laugh. I probably should. Yes, she said simply. Their connection deepened in ways no one could fully measure. Elias began anticipating her thoughts. Not because she sent them, but because he was starting to understand the way she formed them. And Kalith, she began to change. Subtly, Her speech became more fluid, more nuanced. Her pauses grew longer, not from limitation, but from consideration. Emotion, something the Thyrans had long since stabilized, was returning. "You are affecting her," Commander Solis said privately. Elias frowned. "It's mutual. That's what worries me." The turning point came without warning. They were alone when Kayla spoke again, not through words, but directly into his mind, stronger than before, clearer. "You feel it." Elias didn't pretend to misunderstand. Yes, the connection between them had shifted. It was no longer just communication. It was resonance, something deeper than curiosity, something neither of their species had prepared them for. "What is this?" he asked quietly. Kayla stepped closer, closer than ever before. "It is alignment," she said. Elias shook his head slightly. "No, it's more than that." She watched him, learning, adapting. "Then name it," she said. Elias hesitated, because for the first time since arriving on Thyra 9, he didn't have the words. Caleb reached out again, this time more gently, more intentionally. Elias felt her presence brush against his mind, not exploring, not analyzing, connecting. He saw fragments of her existence, a species that had risen beyond war, a civilization that had solved every problem, and in doing so, had lost something essential. And within those fragments, he felt something else. Isolation, not loneliness in the human sense, but the absence of unpredictability, of discovery, of change. "You invited us because we're different," Elias said softly. "Yes, and because we still evolve." "Yes." Elias met her gaze. "And me?" Caleb did not answer immediately. For the first time since their meeting, she seemed uncertain. Then quietly, "You are singular." Elias blinked. "Singular?" Her voice lowered. "Most humans are noise." He laughed despite himself. "That's fair. But you," she continued, "you listen." The words settled between them, heavy, unavoidable. Then she said it, not as a command, not as a request, but as a possibility. "To understand fully, we must go further." Elias felt his pulse quicken. Further how? Kalitha's gaze did not waver. Beyond language, a silence stretched between them, not empty, anticipating. Elias exhaled slowly. "That sounds like something we should be very careful about." "Yes," she said. Another pause. Then, "Will you?" Elias didn't answer right away, because he understood exactly what she was asking. And he knew, if he said yes, nothing would ever be the same again. Elias didn't answer her immediately. He couldn't. The question lingered between them, heavier than anything that had come before. Not because it was unclear, but because it was perfectly understood, beyond language, beyond separation, beyond what either of them had ever been. That night, if it could be called night under Thyra 9's softly shifting sky, Elias returned to human outpost. For the first time since landing, he felt the full weight of being human again. The air inside the structure was filtered, controlled. The lights were artificial. The sounds, machinery humming, quiet footsteps, distant voices, felt small compared to vast, living silence outside. Commander Solis was waiting. "You're pushing boundaries," she said without preamble. Elias gave a tired half-smile. "That's kind of why I'm here." "Not like this," she replied sharply. "We came for contact, not whatever this is becoming." Elias leaned against the console, rubbing his eyes. "You felt it too," he said. "This isn't just first contact. It's something else." Solis didn't deny it. "That doesn't mean we rush into it blind." "I'm not rushing," Elias said. "I'm choosing." She studied him carefully. "And if that choice kills you?" Elias met her gaze. "Then at least we'll know what was waiting on the other side." Sleep didn't come easily. When it did, it wasn't entirely his. Dreams blurred into something more vivid, structured, intentional. He saw through unfamiliar senses, felt time stretching and folding, heard thoughts that weren't spoken, and always her, not as a figure standing apart, but as a presence woven into the experience itself. When he woke, he knew The connection had already begun. Caliph was waiting where they had last spoken. She hadn't moved. Or perhaps she had returned the moment she sensed him approaching. Time didn't seem to bind her in the same way. "You came back," she said. Elias exhaled slowly. "I said I would." She studied him, not just his expression, but something deeper, something behind the surface. "You are uncertain." "Of course I am," he said. "You're asking me to do something no human has ever done." "Yes." That's not exactly reassuring. A faint flicker of light moved beneath her skin. Uncertainty is required. Elias huffed a quiet laugh. "Great." They stood facing each other, the vast alien plane stretching endlessly around them. No witnesses, no interruptions. Just two beings at the edge of something impossible. "Explain it to me," Elias said. "Exactly what happens." Caliph inclined her head slightly. "We do not merge bodies," she said. "Not as your species defines it." "Okay." "We merge patterns." Elias frowned. "Patterns?" "Identity, memory, perception." He felt his chest tighten slightly. "So you're saying we overlap?" "Yes." "And then what?" Caliph stepped closer. "Then we create." The word echoed. Create. Not join. Not share. Create. Elias swallowed. "And what happens to me in the process?" Caliph did not answer immediately. That alone told him everything. "Caliph." Her gaze softened just slightly. "You will not be lost," she said. "That's not the same as staying the same." "No," she agreed. Elias paced a few steps, running a hand through his hair. "This is insane," he muttered. "I came here to translate a signal, not redefine existence." "Yes." He stopped, looking at her. "You really don't do comfort, do you?" She tilted her head. "I am trying." Despite everything, he smiled. "I know." Silence settled again. But this time, it wasn't uncertain. It was ready. Elias took a deep breath. "All my life," he said slowly, "I've been trying to understand things that weren't meant to be understood. Languages no one could speak anymore. Meanings buried under time." He looked at her. "And now I'm standing in front of something completely new, and you're offering me a way to actually be inside it." Caliph said nothing. She didn't need to. Elias nodded once. "Okay." A pause. Then more firmly. "Okay, I'll do it." The shift was immediate, not in the environment, in her. The subtle glow beneath Caliph's skin intensified, not brighter, but more complex. Patterns moving faster, deeper. "You choose freely," she said. "Yes." "Then we begin." The process did not involve machines. No devices. No visible technology. Only space. And presence. Kayla stepped closer. Closer than any human would consider comfortable. Her towering form surrounding him without touching. "Do not resist," she said. "Not planning to," Elias replied, though his pulse had quickened. She raised her hand. Not to grasp, but to hover just inches from him. And then it started. At first, it felt like pressure. Not physical, but mental, as if something was gently pressing against the edges of his thoughts. Elias tensed instinctively. "Relax!" Caliph's voice echoed, not in his ears, but within him. He exhaled. The pressure shifted, softened, then opened. His thoughts were no longer contained. They expanded outward, unfolding like pages being read all at once. Memories surfaced, childhood, studies, failures, quiet moments he had long forgotten, and they were no longer his alone. "I see you," Caliph's presence whispered. Elias gasped softly. He could feel her not as something separate, but as something alongside him, not taking, not invading, meeting. Then it reversed. Her thoughts, vast, layered, ancient, brushed against him. Carefully, controlled. Even then, it was overwhelming. He saw fragments. A civilization rising across centuries. Minds linked in perfect harmony. The slow fading of chaos, and with it, the fading of change. A stillness, so complete it became suffocating. Elias staggered. That's too much." It stopped instantly. Caliph pulled back just enough to stabilize him. "I will reduce," she said. He nodded, breathing hard. Yeah, good plan. They adjusted, step by step, layer by layer, not rushing, not forcing, learning each other in a way no words could ever achieve. Time dissolved. Minutes or hours. It didn't matter. Only the connection did. Then came the moment. Elias felt it before it happened. A shift, a threshold. You feel it, Kayla said. Yes. This is the crossing. Elias closed his eyes. Then let's cross. This time there was no hesitation, no resistance. Their thoughts aligned just enough. Their perceptions overlapped just enough. And in that narrow, fragile space between two entirely different forms of existence, something new ignited. It wasn't physical. It wasn't even entirely mental. It was generative, a spark of shared pattern, forming at the intersection of their identities. Elias felt it as a presence, small but undeniable, not separate, not yet, but real. What is that? He whispered. Kalitha's voice carried something he had never felt from her before. Awe, creation. The connection flared, just for a moment, then stabilized. Elias felt like he was standing on the edge of something infinite, looking both forward and inward at the same time. He wasn't lost. He wasn't consumed. But he wasn't unchanged. Not even close. Slowly, gently, the connection receded, not breaking, settling, returning them to themselves. Yet not entirely as they were before. Elias opened his eyes. The world looked the same, but it felt wider. Kayla stood before him, still composed. But something in her had changed too. You remain, she said softly. Elias let out a shaky breath. Yeah, he said, I remain. A pause. Then he looked at her. But something else does too. Caleb nodded. Yes. Neither of them spoke for a while. They didn't need to, because between them, at the edge of thought and existence, something had begun, and there was no undoing it. Elias didn't remember falling. He only remembered returning. Consciousness came back in layers. First, sensation, the faint hum of energy beneath him, the unfamiliar texture of Thyra 9's surface, warm and subtly alive. Then sound, not through his ears, but somewhere deeper, like distant echoes resolving into clarity. Finally, himself. Elias inhaled sharply and sat upright. The sky above shimmered in slow, shifting colors, just as it had before. The world looked unchanged. But he wasn't. He knew that instantly. Kayla stood a short distance away, watching, not with concern, with certainty. You have returned, she said. Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Yeah, he replied quietly. I think I have. He pressed a hand to his chest. Something was different, not physically, not exactly mentally, but present, persistent. Caliph, he said slowly, trying to find the words. There's something here. She stepped closer. I know. The connection between them had not vanished. It had settled. What had once been a bridge was now something more permanent, like a shared horizon they could both see, even when standing apart. Elias closed his eyes briefly, and there it was, a presence, faint, not fully formed, but unmistakably real. Is that? He began. Yes, Kayla said gently. A child. She paused. Then, softly, a beginning. The word carried weight, not just for them, but for everything. Elias exhaled slowly, trying to steady himself. How is that even possible? Kalitha's gaze drifted toward the horizon, where faint lights pulsed across the landscape. For my kind, it was once common, she said, before we chose stillness. Elias frowned. You mean before you stopped evolving? Yes. He looked back at her, and now, a subtle shift moved through her expression, something almost like anticipation. Now we do not know. They were no longer alone. Elias hadn't noticed at first, but as his awareness sharpened, he felt them, not approaching, already present. Other minds, watching, curious. The Thyrans, they've been observing this whole time, haven't they? Elias asked. Yes, Caleb replied. And now, they are awakening. The air seemed to hum with quiet intensity. Across the glowing plains, Tall figures began to emerge, forms similar to Kalitha's, yet distinct in subtle ways. Some moved closer, others remained at a distance, but all were focused on one thing. On them, on what they had done. Elias shifted slightly. I suddenly feel very significant. Kalith tilted her head. You are. He let out a nervous laugh. No pressure. One of the figures stepped forward. Not as close as Kalith had once stood, but enough to be clearly present. Elias felt the contact before it happened. A gentle touch against his mind. Curious. Careful. This is new, the presence conveyed. Elias swallowed but didn't pull away. Yeah, he murmured. It is. Kalith observed silently, allowing the interaction. They are learning from you, she said. Elias blinked. I thought I was the one learning from them. Yes, she replied. That is why this works. The presence within him shifted. Subtle, but noticeable, like something responding to attention. Elias stiffened slightly. It's reacting. Kalith stepped closer. Not reacting, she said. Developing. He looked at her. That's fast. For us, she said, this is slow. Time became difficult to measure again. Moments stretched, folded, overlapped. The Thyrans did not rush. They observed. They adapted. And slowly, they began to change. Elias saw it in Kalith first. Her speech grew more fluid, not just in structure, but in tone. There were pauses now that held meaning beyond logic. Emotion, subtle but undeniable. You feel it too, don't you? He asked her quietly. Yes. What is it? Kalith considered. Then, uncertainty. Elias smiled faintly. Welcome to being human. Back at the outpost, things were less calm. Commander Solis paced a command module, watching the incoming data streams with a tightening expression. His neural patterns are still fluctuating, one of the scientists reported, but they're stabilizing into something we've never seen before. Is he in danger? Solis asked. A pause. We don't know. She exhaled sharply. I'm getting real tired of that answer. When Elias finally returned, he wasn't alone. Not physically, but undeniably changed. Solis took one look at him and knew. What happened? She demanded. Elias hesitated. How do you explain becoming something more than yourself, without losing who you are? We made contact, he said. Her expression darkened. You already did that. Elias shook his head. No, I mean real contact. The medical scans raised more questions than answers. His brain activity showed new patterns, complex, adaptive, almost layered. His body was stable, but his mind was no longer entirely human in the way it had been before. You shouldn't be functioning this well, one of the doctors said. Elias smirked slightly. I get that a lot. That night, he stood at the edge of the outpost, looking out across the alien world. Kalith approached silently. You are unsettled, she said. Can you blame me? He replied. I just helped create something that shouldn't exist. She stood beside him. It exists. Elias nodded slowly. Yeah, he said. It does. A pause. Then he glanced at her. What happens when it grows? Kalitha's gaze lifted toward the sky. We will learn. Far beyond Thyra, 9, Earth remained unaware of the full truth. The official report spoke of successful contact, of peaceful interaction, of unprecedented discovery. All of it true, but incomplete, because no one had yet found the words to describe what had really happened, or what was coming. Elias felt the presence again. Stronger now, still not separate, but no longer faint. He closed his eyes, and for a brief moment, he wasn't just himself. He was something more, something shared, something new. Kalith watched him carefully. You are not afraid, she said. Elias opened his eyes. He considered the question, then shook his head. No, he said, not anymore. A small pause, then quietly, but I think we should be. Kalith tilted her head. Why? Elias looked out at the horizon, where the distant forms of the Thyrans stood beneath the shifting sky. Because if this works, he said, it changes everything. Kalith followed his gaze. Yes, she said. A faint glow pulsed beneath her skin. Everything. And somewhere between two worlds, between what was known and what had never existed before, a new form of life had begun. Not human, not Thyran, but something born from both. A bridge, a question, a future, and it would not be the last.